The sandstorm howled across the dunes of Kepler-9, its winds carrying microscopic crystals that could strip paint from a shuttle's hull. Dr. Vexthal watched from the safety of her research vessel as the storm ravaged their dig site. Her outer membrane flickered with annoyance. 3 days of work, buried again beneath the ever-shifting sands. Primary storm front has passed, announced the ship's environmental system. External temperature dropping to acceptable levels. The Zizextherian archaeologist extended her sensory stalks, analyzing the changed landscape through the viewport. Where their excavation had been, the storm had carved away centuries of accumulated sand, revealing something that shouldn't be there. A glint of metal, catching the light of the setting sun. Log new anomaly, she dictated. Time mark, local sunset, day 247. Storm activity has exposed previously unidentified structures at coordinates 37 Mark II. Her research assistant, a junior archaeologist named Melcav, pressed their face against the viewport. Those patterns, they're too regular to be natural formations. Dr. Vexthal activated her suit's environmental shields. Prepare for surface expedition. Full containment protocols. The airlock cycled, and moments later, their boots crunched against the still warm sand. Their helmet filters worked overtime to screen out the lingering dust. As they approached the exposed metal, their suits' sensors began recording everything: composition, temperature, radiation levels. Preliminary analysis suggests artificial construction, Melkev reported, waving a scanner over the surface. But the dating, this can't be right. Dr. Vexthal moved closer, her own instruments confirming what seemed impossible. The metal structure was old, far older than any civilization should have been capable of metallurgy on this world. Yet here it was, its surface covered in what appeared to be intentional markings. Look at these engravings, she said, brushing away more sand. Crude attempts at information storage, perhaps, typical of pre-spaceflight species. The patterns seemed to follow some kind of mathematical progression, but their significance eluded her. One symbol appeared more frequently than others, 2 parallel lines with a circle between them. Her initial assessment categorized it as likely religious iconography. Primitive species often mixed their early technological achievements with spiritual beliefs. As the second sun began to set, their lights revealed more of the structure. It extended deep into the dune, far larger than initial scans had suggested. Most intriguing were the perfectly straight edges. Achieving such precision without modern atomic alignment tools should have been impossible for a primitive culture. Director will want a full report, Melkev said, already composing notes on their datapad. Should I classify this as another failed civilization attempt? Dr. Vexthal's membrane rippled with academic satisfaction. Yes, but mark it as an interesting variation. These beings achieved basic metallurgy before their extinction. At least, that's somewhat impressive for such an early species. Their excavation drones began the delicate work of exposing more of the structure. As they cleared away the sand, they discovered that the entire complex was made of the same unusual metal, a composition that didn't quite match anything in their database. Taking samples for analysis, Melkev announced, deploying a collection probe. The moment the probe touched the surface, both researchers noticed something odd. The metal was cool to the touch, despite having been exposed to 2 suns all day. Dr. Vexthal dismissed the observation as equipment error. After all, primitive metallurgy often produced unpredictable results. She documented, of course. Proper scientific procedure required noting even meaningless anomalies. As they prepared to return to their ship for the night, neither researcher noticed the subtle change in the recurring symbol. For just a moment, as the last rays of sunlight hit it at precisely the right angle, the circle between the lines had pulsed with a faint blue light. The discovery was categorized, labeled, and prepared for transport to the Institute's secondary research facility. Just another curious relic of a species that hadn't survived long enough to achieve true civilization. Or so they thought. The grand hall of the Xenorchaeological Institute stretched upward in elegant spiral tiers, its crystalline walls refracting the light of 3 moons. Dr. Vexthal stood at the central podium, her presentation materials arranged with meticulous precision. The assembled scholars settled into their observation pods, sensory stalks extended in polite attention. "Colleagues," she began, her voice carried perfectly by the hall's acoustic enhancement field. "Today we examine artifacts from excavation site Kepler 9, Sector 37 Mark II. The findings represent yet another example of early technological development, though with several interesting anomalies. The 3-dimensional holograms sprouted from the podium, showing the intricate patterns found on the metallic structures. Several senior researchers leaned forward, their membranes rippling with mild amusement at the seemingly primitive designs. "As you can see," Dr. Vexthal continued, rotating the display, "the species attempted to encode information through basic geometric patterns. Our initial analysis suggests a rudimentary understanding of mathematical principles." In the 3rd tier, a young researcher named Katil found herself transfixed by the recurring symbol, the 2 parallel lines with the circle between them. Something about its proportions tickled at her mathematical intuition. She ran calculations through her personal data assistant, trying to understand why the ratio between the lines and circles seemed oddly familiar. "The metal composition," Dr. Vexthal was saying, "shows evidence of heat treatment, though the techniques used were clearly experimental. Our dating puts these artifacts at approximately 50,000 local years old, suggesting the species achieved basic metallurgy before their inevitable extinction." A ripple of scholarly chuckles swept through the audience. Achieving metallurgy only to vanish was considered something of a cosmic joke among xenorchaeologists, a common fate for species that advanced too quickly without developing proper scientific foundations. Till raised her sensory stalk, a motion that drew several disapproving glances. Junior researchers rarely spoke during senior presentations. "Yes," Dr. Vexthal acknowledged her, membrane flickering with barely concealed impatience. "The atomic structure," Hill said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "Has anyone analyzed why it doesn't match any known manufacturing processes in our database?" A hall fell silent. Dr. Vexthal's membrane shifted to a deeper shade of irritation. "As I was about to explain, primitive metallurgy often produces irregular results. The inconsistencies you've noticed are typical of underdeveloped technological processes. But the irregularities show a pattern." Hill persisted, sending her calculations to the main display. "Look at the spacing between atomic layers. It's not random. It's—" "Thank you for your enthusiasm," Dr. Vexthal interrupted smoothly. "Perhaps you'd like to examine these anomalies more closely. I believe we have an opening at our secondary research facility, perfect for a junior researcher of your inquisitive nature." More chuckles rippled through the audience. Assignment to the secondary facility was widely regarded as a diplomatic way of removing troublesome junior researchers from important work. Till's membrane flushed with embarrassment, but she kept her sensory stalk high. "I would be honored to study the artifacts in detail." The presentation continued, moving on to more significant discoveries from other dig sites, but Hill couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was missing something important. She spent the remainder of the session analyzing the strange symbol, certain that its precise geometry held meaning beyond simple decoration. As the assembly concluded, Hill received her new assignment notification. Effective immediately, she would transfer to the secondary facility on the outskirts of the capital. Her colleagues offered perfunctory congratulations, their membranes flickering with barely suppressed amusement. None of them noticed that her data assistant was still running calculations, still trying to decode why that simple symbol, 2 lines, and a circle, seemed to resonate with fundamental mathematical constants they had only recently discovered. In the storage bay far below the Grand Hall, packed away in a containment unit marked Minor Species Study Materials, a faint pulse of blue light continued its patient rhythm, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. The secondary research facility crouched low against the horizon, its utilitarian architecture a stark contrast to the elegant spires of the capital. Till sat alone in the midnight quiet of the artifacts chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing weeks of accumulated data. Temperature variance noted, her monitoring system announced. 0.3 degrees above baseline. She adjusted her sensory stalks, focusing on the latest readings. The artifact's temperature had been fluctuating in tiny increments, too small to trigger the facility's main alarms, but too regular to be random. She'd first noticed the pattern 3 weeks ago, during her regular night shift. "Display overlays," she commanded. Temperature variations mapped against stellar positions. The holograms shifted, creating a three-dimensional representation of local space. Red dots marked the positions of nearby stars, while blue lines traced the artifact's temperature changes. As she watched, the patterns began to align. "Cross-reference with astronomical database," she muttered, her membrane rippling with excitement. "Focus on binary star systems within 50 light-years." The display transformed, highlighting a dozen stellar pairs. The artifact's temperature variations matched their orbital periods perfectly. It was responding to gravity waves from dancing stars, but the sensitivity required for such measurements should have been impossible with primitive technology. Kittle moved closer to the artifact, studying the recurring symbol, those two parallel lines with their central circle. Under her enhanced scanner, she noticed something new. Microscopic variations in the metal's surface density, creating patterns invisible to normal observation. "Begin atomic-level scan," she instructed her equipment. "Focus on surface density variations." The scan revealed layers of complexity hidden within the seemingly simple design. Each microscopic variation corresponded to a different stellar phenomenon, not just binary stars, but pulsars, stellar nurseries, even the subtle ripples of gravitational waves from ancient supernovae. "Log new hypothesis," Kill said, her voice barely a whisper in the empty lab. "The artifacts aren't just responding to stellar phenomena. They're mapping them. But why? And how did a primitive species achieve this level of precision?" She reached for her data assistant, intending to start a new analysis series, when something unexpected caught her attention. The facility's power grid was showing unusual spikes, perfectly timed with the artifact's temperature changes. "Display power consumption patterns for the past month," she ordered. The resulting graph made her membrane flutter in disbelief. The facility's energy efficiency had been steadily improving, microscopic adjustments accumulating into a significant change. Systems were running smoother, cooler, using less power while producing better results. The changes had been so gradual that nobody had noticed. Till's scanner chimed, drawing her attention back to the artifact. The central circle in the recurring symbol was showing unusual energy readings, as if it were somehow processing the stellar data it collected. "Begin full spectrum analysis," she said, setting up a new battery of tests. "Focus on energy transfer patterns between the artifact and facility systems." As she worked, a notification flashed on her display. Her latest findings were due for review. According to protocol, she should report these anomalies to the senior researchers. But something made her hesitate. Dr. Vexthal and the others had already dismissed the artifacts as primitive curiosities. They wouldn't understand the significance of these subtle patterns. "Save data to private research archive," she decided. "Security level maximum." The artifact's temperature shifted again, matching the gravitational pulse of a distant binary pair. In the dim light of her displays, Kittil could have sworn she saw that central circle gleam, just for a moment, with an inner light of its own. She settled in for another long night of observation, unaware that her private research was about to lead her to a discovery that would shake the foundations of everything her species thought they knew about technological development. The maintenance drone hummed as it moved through its weekly cleaning routine, its sonic emitters removing accumulated dust from the artifact storage chamber. Kittil barely noticed its presence, absorbed in her latest analysis of the power fluctuations. The last 3 days had shown increasingly regular patterns, as if the artifacts were building toward something. "Cleaning cycle 60% complete," the drone announced, adjusting sonic frequency for delicate materials. Till's sensory stalks twitched at the change in pitch. Something about that particular frequency made her membrane ripple with unease. She glanced at her instruments, noting a subtle shift in the artifact's energy readings. "Pause cleaning cycle," she started to say, but it was too late. The sonic wave hit the perfect resonance, and the artifact chamber exploded with light. Every engraved pattern, every seemingly decorative line, began to emit a soft blue glow. The recurring symbol, those two parallel lines with their central circle, shone brightest of all. "Emergency protocols initiated," the facility's system announced, but Kittil quickly overrode it. "Belay emergency response," she commanded. "Continue monitoring. Record all frequencies and energy signatures." The walls of the chamber came alive with moving shadows, but they weren't random patterns. The artifacts were projecting equations, complex mathematical formulas that danced across the surfaces. Till's data assistant struggled to capture and process them all. "Power grid synchronization detected," the system reported. "Facility efficiency increasing by factors of error. Values exceed normal parameters." Till watched in amazement as her monitors showed the facility's systems optimizing themselves. Power consumption dropped while output increased. Climate control achieved perfect stability. Even the quantum processors began operating at unprecedented speeds. The maintenance drone, caught in the field of influence, stopped its cleaning cycle. Its operational lights flickered in sequence with the artifact's pulsing glow. When it resumed movement, its efficiency had improved by 300%. "Begin full spectrum recording," Kittil ordered, her membrane flickering with excitement and nervousness. "Focus on pattern recognition and energy transfer mechanisms." The equations projected on the walls were changing, evolving into more complex forms. Till recognized elements of quantum field theory, but taken to levels her species had only theorized about. The mathematical language was elegant, precise, and completely beyond their current understanding. A soft chime drew her attention to the central artifact. The glowing symbol had begun to rotate, its parallel lines aligning with different stellar coordinates as it moved. With each alignment, new equations appeared, describing principles of physics that made her previous theories seem primitive. "Incoming communication from Facility Director," her system announced. "Priority level maximum." Hill hesitated. The director would demand an immediate shutdown, would want to call in senior researchers who would only dismiss or misinterpret what was happening. She needed more time to understand. "Route all communications to secondary buffer," she decided. "Cite potential quantum field instability requiring isolation protocols." The artifacts continued their display, their light painting the chamber in shades of blue and white. The maintenance drone, still moving with its newfound efficiency, had begun tracing patterns on the floor that matched the projected equations. Till's data assistant chimed again, this time with an analysis of the power grid modifications. The artifacts weren't just affecting the facility's systems, they were redesigning them, optimizing them according to principles that seemed to work on multiple levels simultaneously. "Begin translation algorithm," she commanded. "Cross-reference all projected patterns with known mathematical constants." As her systems worked to decode the message hidden in light and shadow, Till realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. These weren't primitive attempts at technology. They were teaching tools, designed to activate only when discovered by beings capable of understanding their significance. The question was, understanding of what? The equations shimmering on the walls had been dancing for hours, cycling through patterns that seemed to follow some deeper logic. Till's sensors had captured terabytes of data, but it was the recurring symbol that finally gave her the key she needed. "Display overlay," she commanded, her voice hoarse from hours of focused work. "Match symbol ratio against universal constants." The holographic display expanded, showing the parallel lines and central circle superimposed over a graph of fundamental physical values. The ratio between the lines matched the relationship between gravity and electromagnetic force. The circle's diameter corresponded perfectly to the Planck length, scaled up by exactly 10 to the 50th power. "It's not a symbol," Hill whispered, her membrane rippling with sudden understanding. It's a key. She input the ratios into her translation matrix, and the seemingly random equations on the wall suddenly snapped into focus. They weren't random at all. They were instructions, written in the universal language of physics itself. The maintenance drone, still operating at its enhanced efficiency, moved to the center of the chamber. Its sensors had detected the change in the projected patterns, and it began to trace new lines on the floor, matching the mathematical sequences exactly. Begin component analysis. Hill ordered her system. Cross-reference with facility inventory. The results made her sensory stalks quiver. Every piece of equipment she needed to follow the instructions was already present in the facility. The sonic cleaners, the quantum stabilizers, even the waste recycling units, all of them could be repurposed according to the patterns now clear before her. These aren't artifacts, she realized. They're components, parts of something larger. The central symbol pulsed brighter, as if acknowledging her understanding. New equations appeared, showing how the pieces would fit together. The mathematics was beautiful in its simplicity, each step building naturally from fundamental principles any spacefaring species would know. Hill's data assistant chimed urgently. The facility's systems were detecting unusual gravitational fluctuations centered on the artifact chamber. Space itself seemed to be responding to the awakened components, creating microscopic distortions that her instruments struggled to measure. Log new hypothesis, she said, her excitement barely contained. The artifacts are designed to interface directly with fundamental forces. The assembly process itself is a test. Only a species that understands basic physics could follow these instructions correctly. The maintenance drone had completed its floor pattern, creating a perfect replica of the equations hovering above. As Hill watched, the pattern began to resonate with the artifacts, creating standing waves in the quantum field that permeated the chamber. Her instruments registered something impossible. The waves were synchronizing with gravitational frequencies from stars hundreds of light years away. The components weren't just responding to stellar phenomena. They were reaching out, connecting to something vast and ancient. Begin assembly simulation, she ordered, feeding the instructions into her system's modeling program. The resulting projection made her membrane flutter in disbelief. The components, when properly assembled, would form nodes in a network designed to manipulate fundamental forces at the quantum level. Each piece served multiple functions, its purpose obscured by what looked like decorative elements to less observant eyes. Hill's attention returned to the central symbol, seeing it now with new understanding. It wasn't just a key to decode the instructions. It was a diagram showing how to tap into the underlying structure of spacetime itself. The facility's power grid hummed in harmony with the quantum fluctuations, its systems continuing to optimize themselves according to principles that had been waiting millennia to be rediscovered. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to sound as other monitoring stations detected the unusual energy patterns. Hill knew she had limited time before her discovery would draw unwanted attention. But she also knew she couldn't stop now. Not when she was so close to understanding what the builders of these devices had been trying to teach them. The assembled components hummed with a resonance that made Hill's inner membrane vibrate. She had followed the instructions exactly, using the maintenance drone's enhanced capabilities to position each piece with quantum-level precision. Now, as the final connections synchronized, the true purpose of the system began to reveal itself. Energy signature detected, her system announced. Source: local star. The holographic display expanded to show their sun, but not as Hill had ever seen it before. Layers of information cascaded across the projection, revealing patterns in the stellar plasma that no Zixtherian instrument had ever detected. The star wasn't just burning, it was being maintained. Cross-reference historical stellar data, she commanded, her sensory stalks extended in full attention. Show variance patterns over the past 1,000 years. The results confirmed what seemed impossible. Their sun's output had been steadily optimized over millennia, its fusion processes guided by forces so subtle that they had escaped notice. The system Till had just assembled was part of a vast network of stellar engineering. A soft chime drew her attention back to the components. The maintenance drone had begun mapping new connections, its enhanced sensors detecting pathways that existed in dimensions her species had only recently discovered. Each seemingly decorative curve and angle served a purpose, creating resonances that stretched across light years. Begin full spectrum analysis of stellar modifications, Till ordered. Focus on habitability parameters. The data painted a picture that challenged everything she thought she knew about technological development. The builders hadn't just achieved advanced engineering. They had reached a level where their technology worked in perfect harmony with natural processes. The central control interface, what they had dismissed as primitive etchings, projected a new series of equations. These weren't just instructions, they were records, documenting centuries of careful adjustments to their star's output. Every change had been calculated to support life on multiple worlds, maintaining delicate balances that would have collapsed without intervention. Incoming emergency override, her system warned. Security protocols engaging in 30 seconds. Till's membrane flickered with frustration. The facility's automated systems had finally detected enough anomalies to trigger a shutdown. But the interface was showing her something crucial, a pattern of stellar engineering that extended far beyond their single system. Transfer all data to secure backup, she ordered. Initiate containment protocols. The maintenance drone, understanding her intent better than any normal machine should, began establishing quantum-encrypted connections to hidden storage nodes. The knowledge had to be preserved, even if the system was shut down. Through the facility's sensors, Till detected approaching security units. They would shut everything down, label it all as equipment malfunction. But she had seen enough to understand the truth. The builders had created a galaxy-spanning network of stellar maintenance systems, ensuring that life would continue to flourish long after they had moved on. The interface pulsed one final time, showing her a map of nearby star systems. Each one contained similar primitive ruins, waiting to be discovered by species capable of understanding their true purpose. The builders hadn't just achieved technological supremacy, they had become custodians of life itself. Security override in 10 seconds, the system announced. Till made a quick decision. Instead of fighting the shutdown, she initiated a controlled deactivation sequence based on the patterns she had learned. The components powered down gracefully, their energy signatures fading to nearly undetectable levels. The security teams would find nothing but seemingly inert artifacts, but Till knew better now. She understood why every piece appeared simple on the surface while containing layers of complexity. The builders had created technology that revealed itself only to those who approached it with genuine curiosity and understanding. As the chamber's lights returned to normal, Till began composing her research notes very carefully. She would need to present her discoveries in a way that even the most skeptical scientists couldn't dismiss. After all, the future of her entire species might depend on understanding what these remarkable builders had left for them to find. The emergency session of the Zixatherian Science Council filled the great chamber with nervous energy. Till stood before them, her research data projected in sweeping holographic arrays that wrapped around the circular space. Behind her, live feeds showed their sun behaving in ways that defied conventional physics. The stellar optimization network is already active, she explained, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. It has been for millennia. We simply never noticed because it was designed to work in harmony with natural processes. The head counselor's membrane rippled with distress. You mean to tell us that our sun, the very star that gives us life, has been under external control this entire time? Not control, Till corrected, adjusting the display to show the intricate dance of plasma flows. Maintenance, enhancement. The system doesn't force changes. It guides natural processes toward optimal conditions for life. Another counselor rose, his sensory stalks fully extended in alarm. This must be shut down immediately. The risk is too great. We cannot allow unknown technology to interfere with our star. Till's data assistant chimed urgently. displaying consequences of intervention, she announced, bringing up a new simulation. The mathematics was elegant but terrifying. The network doesn't just maintain our star. It coordinates with similar systems across thousands of light years. Attempting to disable it would destabilize patterns that have developed over millennia. The chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors demanded immediate action, while others called for further study. Hill watched the live feed of their son, seeing with new understanding how each plasma filament and magnetic loop was part of a vast cosmic dance. "Look," she said, highlighting a particular pattern in the stellar data. "When we first achieved spaceflight, our sun's output adjusted slightly to accommodate the increased radiation shielding we would need. When we established our first orbital habitats, the system modified solar wind patterns to better protect them." The display shifted to show historical data. Every major advancement in their civilization had been subtly supported by changes so gentle they had gone unnoticed. The builders had created a system that didn't just preserve life, it helped it flourish. "Incoming data from Deep Space Observatory," her system announced. Similar patterns were being detected in neighboring systems. The network was vast, extending far beyond their local cluster. A junior counselor spoke up, his voice trembling. "These builders, they achieved this level of engineering, and then just left. Why?" Hill adjusted the display again, showing the elegant mathematics hidden within the artifact structure. "I don't believe they left," she said softly. "I think they evolved. This technology, it's not just machinery. It's a bridge between the physical and the fundamental." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Their civilization, which had prided itself on its technological achievements, had been living inside a vast network of engineering so advanced it appeared natural. Every scientific breakthrough, every step into space, had been quietly supported by systems designed to help life reach its full potential. "We have a choice," Catil continued, her membrane glowing with intensity. "We can resist this discovery, try to shut down systems we barely understand, or we can learn. The builders left us these tools not to control us, but to teach us." The live feed suddenly showed new activity. The Stellar Optimization Network was responding to their observations, revealing more of its patterns as they demonstrated their ability to understand them. It was like a vast intelligence had been waiting patiently for them to ask the right questions. "The network is active across all observed systems," her assistant reported. "Each node is responding in sequence." Till faced the council, knowing their next decisions would shape the future of their species. "We are not alone," she said. "We never were. We've been walking a path prepared by those who came before, who reached out across time itself to help us grow." The chamber's displays filled with new data as more systems came online, each one adding its voice to a stellar symphony that had been playing unheard for countless generations. 3 cycles had passed since the discovery that changed everything. Hill stood in the newly established Stellar Integration Center, watching holographic displays track the awakening systems across their galactic arm. Each point of light represented another civilization making the same discovery they had, each one adding their understanding to the growing network. "Node 47 coming online," announced the monitoring system. The light from a distant star system joined the symphony, its pattern unique but harmonizing perfectly with the whole. The builders had created something beyond mere technology. They had woven a tapestry of light and knowledge across the stars themselves. Dr. Vextel entered the chamber, her previous academic arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. "The latest analysis confirms it," she said, extending her sensory stalks toward the main display. "Every system we've studied shows evidence of long-term optimization. The patterns go back millions of years." Catil adjusted the display to show their home system. The solar dynamics they had once thought natural now revealed their intricate engineering, each plasma flow and magnetic field working in concert to sustain life. "They understood something we're only beginning to grasp," she replied. "The best technology doesn't conquer nature, it enhances it." The maintenance drone that had first triggered the awakening now moved through the chamber with fluid grace, its systems fully integrated with the builder's principles. Around it, junior researchers studied the mathematical patterns that had once been dismissed as primitive decorations, each layer revealing new insights into the nature of reality itself. Signal from the outer colonies. The system chimed. The display shifted to show distant outposts where similar discoveries were being made. Each ruined site, each seemingly simple artifact, contained pieces of a vast legacy left by builders who had seen the potential in younger species. They could have simply given us the technology, Dr. Vexthal mused, watching the data flows. Instead, they created a system that would only reveal itself when we were ready to understand it. Kill's membrane rippled with agreement. Because the understanding was more important than the technology itself. Look at how the network responds differently to each species that discovers it, adapting its teachings to their unique perspectives. A new alert drew their attention. The deep space arrays had detected something remarkable. Evidence that the network extended far beyond their galaxy, reaching out to other island universes in the cosmic ocean. The builders hadn't just thought in terms of years or centuries. They had planned for the evolution of life itself. Latest integration report ready, announced Kittil's assistant. The data showed how their own technology was beginning to harmonize with the builder's principles. Power systems became more efficient, waste reduced to nearly zero, each advancement bringing them closer to understanding the elegant simplicity at the heart of it all. To think we almost missed it, Dr. Vexthal said softly. If we had continued to dismiss those ruins as primitive. That was part of the test, Kittil realized. Only those who could move past their preconceptions, who could see beauty in simplicity, would be ready for what the builders left behind. The chamber filled with new data as another node activated in a distant system. Through the network, they felt the moment of discovery, the same wonder they had experienced now being shared by another species reaching out to touch the infinite. Begin archive update, Kittil commanded. Their records had been completely revised, now acknowledging the subtle guidance they had received throughout their development. The builders had never forced their path. They had simply made sure that when young species were ready to take their next steps, they wouldn't have to do it alone. Above them, their sun pulsed with healthy light, its processes optimized by engineering so profound it had hidden in plain sight for generations. And in the depths of space, more lights were awakening, more civilizations joining a legacy left by those who had looked at the vast darkness between stars and seen not emptiness, but possibility. The builders had given them more than technology. They had given them a future and the wisdom to shape it well.